Hey, and welcome to another low carb meal prep video. Got 3 new recipes today. I always tell myself when I do all 3 new things, if they don't turn out good, I am stuck for the week. But I think I've hit on some good ones this week. For breakfast, spinach and prosciutto frittatas. That was from a recipe. I will link the original in my recipe. I always look in my description box because any new recipes that I cook on a particular video are always linked in the description box to the recipe on my website. So be sure and check there. And I will have the original because I reworked it a little bit to suit, me. And listen, you can rework my rework. That's perfectly fine too. Or you can do it as written, but it's a spinach and prosciutto frittata. Then for lunch, I made some bacon wrapped chili cheese dogs, and I pretty much did my chili with the addition of onions and a can of tomatoes, because all my hot dog chili is ketchup, cumin, and chili powder. That's how I've always made it, and that's what we like, and so that's how I make it. But for this, to make it a little bit bulkier, to give it a little bit more recipes that put in some fire roasted tomatoes, I used just petite dice. So I made that. I'm hoping that's going to be good because y'all know hot dogs is my favorite. And then for snack, I made the onion soup. Now that's the one recipe I did not change. I left it exactly like it was, except for it called to use ghee to cook the onions in. I didn't want to buy ghee because I'm not going to use it, enough to warrant the price of it. Because even at Aldi's, I think it's like $7 for a jar of it. That's just more than I'm wanting to spend when I have just good old plain butter. That to me is just fine. So I just used butter instead of ghee, and I did use real butter. Now I tasted that, and it was good. Hold on. Had a yawn coming on. I'm not trying to get y'all started already. But that's all we're doing for this week. Now my low carb, I am keeping it lower carb. I will have a grain if I want a grain, because if I want a bowl of oatmeal, I'm going to have a bowl of oatmeal. But I'm not going to incorporate grains regularly, because I just think there's a difference the way my body and my hunger levels are when I have certain things in my diet. And it's not just the simple carbs, because we got rid of those, except for if you splurge on some graham crackers or some crazy nonsense like that. No names. But beans don't affect me. Beans keep me full. They don't make me crave nothing else afterwards. But the other things, they just kind of do. So as far as my preps, I'm not going to be incorporating any grains in the prep recipes themselves. If I want to eat grains, I will just get me a small portion on the side. I'll keep making David some, because I think he needs them. I feel like I'm starving him. He's a hard-working man. He's got to have more than me. Even though he said he wants to lose some weight, he's still got to have more than me. But anyway, that's what we're having today. So I hope you enjoy this video. And if you haven't subscribed, just subscribe. I'd love to have you. We'll get into something. If you didn't look at our collab, our air fryer collab yesterday, go check my videos. Maybe I'll link it at the end. I'll tell you what, I'll link it at the end. Check it, and then go check everybody else's out, because there's a bunch of good air fryer recipes. Yeah, if you're on the fence, if you have one, maybe you got something new to try. But if you're on the fence of getting one, this might help you decide if you think it's worth you buying one or not. So anyway, that's all I know. Let's just go into the kitchen. That was yesterday. The first thing we're going to do is start on our our onion soup because we need to caramelize the onions. That'll take a little bit. And then we need to let it simmer about an hour. So what you can barely see over here off screen is I have my big Dutch oven. It's the heavy cast iron pan. I would suggest using a heavy one just so you don't burn the onions. You get more of a, like I said, caramelization on them. And I have 4 tablespoons of butter melted, real butter. Now, I've already sliced 3 of them. It takes 4 large. I want to show you the size I'm using. It's a good size. But I don't think I'm pretty sure I had never shown you this tip. I learned when I was working at Wendy's in college, the fast food restaurant. One of my jobs was prep in the morning, and I was on onion duty. I also learned if you get your eyes, you start crying and burning, go stick your head in the freezer. Because we would go in the walk-in freezer, and something about that cold, moist air, when it hits your eyes, it clears it up. So I just go over here and shove my face in the freezer on top of my refrigerator. Works every time. But here is my tip for taking off that. The first layer, is always not good. Get you a real good sharp knife. Just barely, let me get to a softer spot. Just barely cut through that first layer. That's all you want to do. This is especially helpful if you're making onion rings, because you take off that first layer without ruining the circle. So there you go. Completely peeled the first layer off. Now we just want to slice them as thin as possible. Okay, my butter is starting to brown because I left it on a little bit too long. So melt your butter, add in all of your onions, and we're just going to let that cook. Mine's kind of on medium high. Stir them every little bit until they get just starting to caramelize and get brown. You don't want to cook them all the way brown because they're going to simmer for another hour. We don't want to turn them to complete mush. So I'll be back. I'm going to look at the time right now. It says 10:32. That way if I forget, when I look up what time I started, it will be on my video when I edit. So just break them up if you can. Get them into rings. And I'll be back. This is as far as I want them to go. They're just a little blonde, but you can see they're nice and limp and just starting to turn brown. So that's as much as I want to do them. Now, we're using bone broth. This is just the Sam's Choice beef bone broth, and I've already measured out 2 cups of that. And then we need 2 cups of the chicken bone broth. The broth is what's going to give it, the bone broth is what's going to give it such a rich flavor. So we'll add that. And then 5 cloves of garlic. And very rarely do I measure it out. I'm just going to dump some in. Obviously you can fresh crush yours. I just don't. Now all we need to do is let this simmer about an hour. So I'm going to push it back here on my back burner on the other side and let it go while we continue on with the rest of our prep. Before we get started on these hot dogs, I think I forgot to tell you the onions, I caramelized them until 10:56. So I started at 10:23 up to 10:56. Do the math. I'm sure it's yeah. I always look dumb when I try to do math on camera. So we're just not going there. Oh, this is peel apart. So the first thing we want, and I had that I was only going to get 6 hot dogs in a pack, but I had the Hebrew Nationals in my brain because I was used to eating those 97% fat-free ones, and they only come with 6. So when I just now pulled this out, I saw that it was 8. Well, this is going to make 6 servings, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap the extra two, and me and David will just have those for lunch. He can put his on a piece of bread, and I'll just eat mine plain with some mustard and ketchup. But you need some regular bacon. I'm just using this lower sodium because it was on sale, and I thought, well, why not? Now, here is another trick. You know how hard it is when the bacon is like that to get it to peel off? This is something I learned years ago in my travels. That's what I call them. Just take it, roll it up the opposite way. I usually give it one this way just for good measure. And if the magic of TV does not work against me, we will be able to easily pull the pieces of bacon apart. Listen. Now let's go ahead and open up our hot dogs. Okay, now let's test this theory on camera. Looky there. They pull off very nice and easily. So we just want to wrap each hot dog in a piece of bacon. If you want to cut points, if you do points, you can use the lower point hot dogs. You can wrap it in half the amount of bacon. There's ways that you can adapt this if that's what you do. The hardest part is when they do that little piece at the end. I pulled up two. See, when they get them all thin like that, they get hard to deal with, don't they? Well, how ridiculous. That is awful thin, but you know what? We'll use it. I have my oven preheated to I thought I put it on 425, but it's on 400, so I'll just leave it. Okay, this is the last of the hot dogs. All the rest of the bacon worked fine, of course, you know, since it wasn't on camera. Ain't that how it works? Now we're going to pop them in the 400-degree oven until it's done. And when it's done, that means the bacon is done to your liking. So while I put that in there, I will come back and we'll have it set up to make the chili that goes on top. This is for the chili part of our hot dogs. I've preheated my pot here. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on the bottom because I bought the 80-20 hamburger, but you know they substituted some 93. And so I had some of the 93 that I left in the refrigerator for either this or spaghetti. So I'm just going to put in this, save a little points here. A little calories. I'll cook that sizzling in a minute. Season it with your house seasoning or salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, anything you want to put on it. Not done right yet. Now you want some onion. Just how much ever onion you think you want, that's how much you put in there. And how much ever garlic you think you want. We're just going to let that cook until the hamburger is done. The hamburger and onions are done. I turned it down to kind of medium. The only thing different I'm doing about this chili than I do about the chili that I make for my hot dogs that I've always made, it's just a basic chili, is I'm adding a can of petite diced tomatoes just to bulk it up a little bit, give it a little bit something extra. Now my chili is made with ketchup. Y'all know I love my ketchup. Well, I have this sugar-free in the refrigerator because I bought it when I was on Weight Watchers for a recipe. I don't eat it straight up. It's not bad. I just prefer my regular ketchup, but I thought this is a good place to use it and not let it go to waste. Now, I don't measure. I just do it until it looks right. So we'll say that's about a quarter cup. That's probably about a half a cup. Now, it's not going to be thick like mine because I don't put those juicy tomatoes in it. We are going to cook it down a little bit. And then the only seasonings I add are chili powder and cumin. And I don't measure those either. I put them in there and I taste it. So these will be to taste. Chili powder and cumin. Now you can get too heavy with the cumin if you're not careful. So if you're afraid you're going to dump it in there, get you a spoon. Now I know that's not enough. It's sweet from the ketchup, but I like my chili sweet. So you can actually use just a little more of each. A little more cumin. And a little more chili powder. Not much, because you know that stuff lights me up. Now I'm just going to let that simmer here a few minutes till some of that extra liquid is cooked down. The way I finished these hot dogs was I baked them. I wasn't paying attention, but it was probably 10 to 15 minutes. Then I popped them under the broiler, maybe 5 minutes on that side. Then I flipped them over for another few to 5 minutes just to make sure the bottom was cooked as well. So the first thing we're going to do is take out our 2 extra ones for later. Then I'm going to take out the 2 for David. I'm just going to put his in the same bowl. He's subject to eat it all at one time. Then for ours, we will do 1 per serving. I considered doing 1.5, but I thought, nah, I'll save the calories. I'll eat them somewhere else. Now the chili. Oh, let's see. I did leave it a little juicy, if you can see it in, let's see, a little bit like that, because as it sets up during the week, I didn't want to completely dry it out. So this makes 6 servings. I'm weighing or measuring. I'm just going to eyeball 6 even helpings. Okay, I think we got those as even as we're going to. Now the last thing we need to put on top is our cheese. This is just grated sharp cheddar cheese. This is 6 ounces because I want 1 ounce per serving. If you're going to have a chili cheese dog, you got to have the cheese. So here again, I'm just going to eyeball what I think evenly would be. Okay. So that is all we're going to put in our container. When we heat this up, the cheese will melt. Now the side that I'm serving with is slaw, because you don't have a chili cheese dog without some slaw, right? I know you know how to make it, but I'll bring you along anyway. For the slaw, I had ordered a bag of the angel hair already shredded, because then I don't have as much to chop. But they were out, so I just told them substitute would be just a head of cabbage would be fine. Now I don't need much. I'm gonna get this in there and see. So I don't like big pieces of slaw. Obviously, make yours however you like it. Okay, I think that's going to be good. So, a quarter of just a regular size head of cabbage. And this is one of those choppers that I use. This is how I finish off my slaw. Now, the longer you chop, the smaller it's going to get, but that's okay for me today. You can obviously get your food processor out and make it more uniform and smaller, but I don't always feel like messing it up. So, oh, I forgot to get everything. Hold on. Okay, I got everything. First, we want to do some salt and pepper. This is to taste. I have a recipe on my website when I was counting points that I pinned down some measurements for, but I'm just not going to do that this time. Just a little bit of sugar. I am not using sugar substitute in my slaw. That's probably a teaspoon. How many calories is in a teaspoon of sugar? It's not much. And a little bit of vinegar. Don't go as heavy on it at first, because we're going to taste it and go from there. Now, as much mayonnaise as you want. And you know, I'm a Duke's girl. As much mayonnaise. What do you think that is? Half a cup? To make it as the thickness that you want. Okay, see, that is it's loose. It's not like coming together. So let me get all this cabbage off of here. I'm going to get some more mayonnaise. And I can do whatever I want to this jar, because I want nobody in the house to eat it. So we'll throw in about another quarter cup, I guess. This will also start to weep out a little bit of moisture as the week goes, but just drain it off or stir it back in. Okay, now let me taste it for seasoning. And here again, I can taste on my own spatula because nobody else is going to touch this. Definitely needs more vinegar. And a skosh more sugar. Because right now all I'm getting is mayonnaise. So make your favorite slaw. Make this slaw, but make it to taste. Don't eat slaw. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it. I probably could go with a little more sugar. But I know my chili's going to be sweet because of that ketchup. So I think I'll just leave this like it is. This is going to make me 4 servings. Now, in all honesty, I could sit down with a spoon and eat every bit of this right now. But I'm going to divide it into 4 small servings. During the week, I'm just going to scoop it out and measure it as I go. Now, let's see. The soup is still simmering for a little bit more. I guess we'll start on our frittata. To start our spinach and prosciutto frittata, and I'm doing it almost completely different from the recipe I found, so. But it called for 2 ounces of prosciutto, and this is a 3-ounce pack. I think I even mentioned in my grocery haul, what am I going to do with an ounce of prosciutto? So I'm just going to use the whole 3 ounces. We want to slice it, dice it, whatever you want to call it. It's very, very thin, and it comes between little, hold on. These little sheets are between each piece because it is so thin. You would never, ever get them apart because you can see, just taking them off of that plastic, what they do. Now, I've already started to preheat my, I already got it too hot. My pan here. You want a pan, pot, whatever. high enough to put all this spinach in. So we're just going to start at the bottom with just a little bit of olive oil. Don't need much. And then we want to just dice this into bite-sized pieces. Just do your best. Parts of the prosciutto are starting to get brown. We're just going to transfer it to another bowl, dish, or whatever. I'm just using my baking dish instead of messing up something else. If there's any oil in there, just leave it. We're going to add just a hair more. I'm going to just set this aside. Now I want just a little bit more olive oil in there because now we're going to sweat these spinaches down. It's about 6 ounces. The reason I picked this recipe is because I had spinach left in the refrigerator that I didn't use for something. So I needed to get it used up, and I had part of a wedge of Parmesan cheese that we got at Trader Joe's for a recipe that I needed to use. And so this was a perfect recipe to do both of those. This is a combination of 2 packages I had, which is, as luck would have it, pretty much 6 ounces. Now, if you want to leave yours whole, you can leave yours whole, but I think I've said in here before I don't like big long pieces of spinach, so just chop it right down into it, and we're just going to cook it until it is wilted. While that spinach is over there sizzling away, we're going to mix up our eggs. I've already put 8 eggs in here and beat them up. I'm going to do a little bit of salt and pepper. Then this is heavy cream. This is another thing I had. There's still a little bit left in there. I had about half of this. So I had 3 things that I needed to use and they come together in this recipe. I'm sorry, excuse me. So that's a half a cup of heavy cream. And there again, you can substitute milk of your choice. And see how fast that spinach wilts. How fast it wilts down. Now for this, we need total 3/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. This is off of that block I told you, off a block of Parmesan cheese. So we only want to put half of it in here. The other half we're going to put on the top. We'll just set that aside. Actually, we'll bring it back, put our prosciutto in there, then we'll set it aside. Actually, we can leave it right here because we're going to add our spinach. Okay, that's about as cooked down as I'm going to do it. I'm going to add that to our This is a 9x9. It's a Pampered Chef. It's a 9x9. I imagine you could use an 8x8 if you wanted to. But I thought, which I usually do use, I thought, well, this time I'll just mix it up a little bit. So just kind of distribute that stuff around. And then sprinkle the top with the rest of the Parmesan cheese. And this will go in at 425 minutes, I'm guessing. I'll check it after 20. While that frittata is baking, let's go ahead and dish up this onion soup. Now, I can't decide how many servings I want this to be. So, I've got out 6 containers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my onions out first. And then divide the broth between them. Now, I have tasted this, and it is very good. But I'm going to warn you, if you don't love onions, don't make this soup. You're going back and tell me, ugh, that sure does taste too much like onions. Well, it is supposed to. So, if you love onions, I recommend this soup. If you're just okay with onions, I do not. I think with that amount of broth, I'm just going to do 4. It'll just be a lot of onions. Okay, so that's about as even as I'm going to get that. So with 4 servings, that's the equivalent of 1 onion per serving. So there you go. All right, when we come back, we'll dish up our frittata. For the frittata, I set the timer for 20 minutes, and it got set up in 20 minutes. So that is in this 9x9. I've just let it been sitting here cooling for, I don't know, about 10 minutes. Now, I'm making 4 big servings. If you want to lower your calories and or points, if that's what you're going by, then cut it smaller. But I like a big breakfast if I can get by with it. As in if I have it. But, I mean, think about it. It's only 2 eggs. So I don't think it's too much. Isn't that pretty? Oh, that looks good. All right, now that everything has been dished up, I'll set this aside and we'll look at everything we did today. I hope you can see everything. The calories and carbs will be on the screen. So for breakfast, we have our spinach and prosciutto frittata. For lunch, we have our bacon-wrapped chili cheese dog. You can see the cheese has started to melt from that heat. We will just microwave this until it's heated through and the cheese is melted. And then I made slaw to go on the side because what's a chili cheese dog without slaw? And you see we're keeping the carbs low by not having a bun. And then for snack, onion soup. Now, what I thought was, because you know, traditional onion soup, French onion soup, they put it in the oven under the broiler and got that cheese all over it. I thought I might dot a laughing cow on there before I heat it. I thought that would be really good. So there's just a suggestion, but it's what I'm going to try at least one time. So there you have it. That is my week of breakfast, lunch, and snacks that I hope is going to keep me successful. It's going to keep me low carb. I'm trying to keep my calories down this week. I'm trying not to do a whole bunch of mindless eating if I can. I'm not making no promises because it's life. And life just does things. We do our best. And that's all we can ask of ourselves is to do our best. So there you have it. I will see you on my next video.